Welcome to the Powerlifting and Power Ballads podcast, where we bring you a weekly dose of powerlifting news, tips, and training advice with a touch of 80s rock ballads. This podcast is presented by Team Roar Powerlifting, your source of the most comprehensive coaching and meet day preparation. Here are your hosts, Josh Rohr and Laura Sturm.
Welcome to Powerlifting and Power Ballads podcast. I am one of your hosts, Laura Sturm.
And I'm Josh Rohr. Welcome to episode 101.
So we're going to jump right in with a powerlifting situation. And this is a great question. Take one athlete from any sport, from any time in history. Instead of competing in their sport, they focus only on powerlifting. Who would have made the best powerlifter?
I'm actually going to take Sherman's guy. If you ever ask Sherman, like, who's his favorite athlete of all time, he's going to say Earl Campbell. Earl Campbell was a running back for the University of Texas and also for the Houston Oilers. And he had 36-inch legs, and his waist, I believe, was like right around 31. So each of his individual legs were bigger than his waist. So I think he would be a squatting machine.
Wow. Yeah. I don't know. Like I just saw this picture as I, came online, and I was like, ooh, that's such a deep question. Like, that's going to have to be something that our listeners weigh in on, because I am just like, so many possibilities. I can't.
Yeah. I mean, there's probably better choices there, but I don't know. He was like one of those guys that on the football field was just very hard to tackle. He was just like bullying people almost. And if you let him like only focus on powerlifting, like, it would be crazy what he would do, I think. So that's my choice. Earl Campbell.
There you go. Right. So what's going on in the powerlifting world?
So we had a Zoom call with, basically it was an open invitation to anybody that had a pro card, just to kind of go over the format for 2023 and kind of get feedback. What we presented, I guess, was that we would, reduce the pro series from 7 events in 2022 to 3 events in 2023. Primarily because twofold, I guess, have more substantial payouts at each individual pro meet, but also force the competition to be head to head. Like the way it is now with a couple of the UBU events, there's a couple people that went and did a meet uncontested and got first place points. So they're ahead of lifters that they might have gotten beat by head to head, but because they lifted uncontested, they got points. So this kind of forces all the lifters to go head to head, and, still requires 2 meets to score, 1 pro meet plus nationals. But it'll be more organized. We're already working on setting the calendar for next year. And, that's the main difference. The second difference is, we're going to add a couple pro card qualifying meets. So kind of like the Arnold Raw Challenge, where the best lifter earned their pro card. We're going to get rid of the wild card spots that were at nationals. So basically, as it is, to get your pro card at nationals, you just have to get top 3 if you're raw, or top 2 if you're equipped or bench only. And it was the same thing, but then there was also like 5 wild cards for women and like 2 for men. But that got kind of confusing. So we're going to scrap the wild cards and move those to pro card qualifying meets. So it'll be a meet of its own where, people will be going head to head and the best lifter gets a pro card. So even though it's not a pro series meet per se, it's going to be a super competitive and entertaining meet to see play out. So that's the main thing with the format. Again, this is still being worked on, but it's what we kind of presented to the pro lifters that were online, and most of them seemed pretty in favor of this format. And then the other question and kind of thing we discussed was the pro series as it pertains to international lifters. As it was, I think we announced it last week, the Australian USAPL Australia, I guess, is having their nationals in December, and they're also having their Australian Open. And the top 2 lifters in each weight class at nationals get a pro card. And then the best lifter of the Australian Open gets a pro card. Well, the reason for the Australian Open part is that any lifter from any country can join and enter that. So, we have obviously USA Powerlifting Australia, but, if somebody from Canada wants to come and earn a pro card, they can come to the Australian Open. And if they win best lifter, then they get a pro card. Now how that then ties into the pro series is once they have their pro status, then they would have to do a pro event and US nationals if they don't have a affiliation of their own country. And how US nationals would work is they would just enter as a guest lifter, but then they would also be entered into the pro division. So for example, open lifters currently they're in the open division, but then also the pros are scored against the other pros by dots for the pro series. So even though they'd be a guest lifter in terms of US nationals, they would be in the pro division, so they could still earn points for the pro series, and potentially make it to the Arnold finals that way. Then the idea of like the kind of the 3-year plan, 4-year plan, et cetera, would be for each country that's been established for a few years to have their own pro series. And then the winner of that pro series from that country would come to the Arnold finals. So right now it's kind of gives options for both. It's kind of a 2 to 4 year plan ish, just depending how competitive a country is when they come online. So even Australia, for example, next year they may not, be established enough to have their own pro series, so they can, hold one of their own pro meets or like a pro-am, kind of like the Australian Open, where amateur lifters can enter, best lifter gets a pro card. And then they can also have the pro side of it where, you can get only pro lifters can enter that, and you can still get points towards the pro series and then come to the US and lift as a guest lifter in the pro division. It sounds confusing as I'm saying it out loud, but once we kind of get everything kind of written out, it'll make more sense and be far less confusing than it was this year. But it gives a clear cut way for international lifters to get into the pro series and also to get their pro card. So, it will involve them traveling to, a country that is having one of these pro card qualifying meets, which Australia's going to have that in the fall or winter, I guess. And then, the US has a bunch of them too. So they could theoretically come to the US twice if they wanted to do that to get their pro card and then compete in the series. But it gives options. And as more countries come online, this is going to be an option in more countries, hopefully get more international lifters and more countries online, kind of a snowball effect. So.
Nice.
Yeah.
So even though you're not part of the EC anymore, you're still giving back to the sport by being involved in this.
Yes, until somebody else is willing to take the reins. I'm kind of still working on it because there's just a lot of moving parts and to get, it is kind of a time commitment to manage all this. And if anybody is interested, definitely hit me up. Would love to have somebody else kind of take the reins on it. And I'm not walking away. But said I do got a kid on the way and things like that. I would like to step back a little bit and make sure I'm available for that. But
right.
For the time being, I'm still involved in that.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like a lot of moving parts for sure. And kind of complicated and trying to make it that long range plan. Yeah.
It's actually a lot more simple in 2023 than it was this year. And I think once people see the format, because the other thing that people get confused on is like, it's a little bit different criteria for raw full power in terms of getting a pro card than it is for equipped or bench only. It's top 3 versus top 2. Why is there more pros that are raw? Well, it's because there's more raw lifters. Like it's keeping it roughly, equal opportunity for all those divisions. One other change that there's going to be, or at least that we're proposing, is to get rid of the Masters 1 Pro Series, Masters 2 Pro Series, et cetera, and just make it the Masters Pro Series and use the age coefficient with dots. That way we have, one, a lot more competitive Masters competition, but also same concept. We can give a bigger prize money to the Masters winner than if we were giving out 4 separate winners. Now, one thing that is being reviewed, and Joe Marksteiner is working on this, is the actual age coefficient that we were using, which was the McCullough age coefficient, I think was developed in the 60s. And, Joe's been working at it and looking at it. And he said that basically, people live a lot longer now than they did. So it's actually pretty significantly different age coefficient that we'll probably be implementing. And it's probably going to be called the USA Powerlifting age coefficient. But it does kind of level the playing field, because right now, somebody in their 70s gets a pretty big bump and they're really hard to beat. And looking at the life expectancy now versus then, a 70-year-old, probably wasn't even alive in the 60s. that's a stretch, right? But they weren't competitive lifting, especially off the data sample and stuff too. So he looked at the data from our current lifter database, and which is a lot more lifters than back then, and then also looked at the the age disbursement of those lifters and came up with a pretty good formula that I think is gonna work pretty well. I actually, just being a nerd, I kind of just looked up some of the top lifters off the top of my head that are all different ages, and they're all right around like the same same age and dot score, which will make it pretty interesting.
Well, cool. Well, do you want to move on to our TV intro songs, the power ballad part of?
Yeah, we're on number 4. So we revealed everybody's number 5 last week. We'll go through everybody's number 4. Starting with Wade Johnson, he has Gilligan's Island. His reasoning, his defense of that was 50 plus years later, I can still sing it. So I think that's true. That's a hard one to forget. I think everybody knows it, even if you don't even know what Gilligan's Island is. If somebody starts playing this song, you kind of start singing along.
Yeah, right. That's funny. I wouldn't have thought of that. Cameron, French name, Barlow.
Cameron Barlow.
Yeah, see,
Yeah.
He's made that sound so easy. Had Ted Lasso, the Ted Lasso theme. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm too much of a nerd to know that one.
Yep, I don't know that one either. Again, I said I would do my research and I did not. Joe House, he has Mission Impossible. The television song was used as a theme song in the movie version with Tom Cruise in the 90s. Okay.
That is a pretty recognizable one too.
Yeah, it is. So that's something I didn't know. I didn't know that it was a show before it was a movie. So I guess learn something new every day.
Yeah, you know. Dawn Dotson also had MASH, Suicide is Painless is the name of the song. Boy, words are hard today. And she says another song that just directly connects you to the show.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a good one. That was on my short list, but it didn't quite make it. Gary Jacobs had The Office. This was also on my short list. Makes you want to get up and get busy. I don't know about that, but it's definitely recognizable. And I think if anybody hears it, they it's at least familiar to them, even if they've never seen the show.
Yes, and I'm a big fan of The Office. So
yeah, I am too. I love that show.
Love it. Chris Peterson had Family Matters. And he says he loves the classic 80s/90s music to that iconic intro. Cannot beat Urkel.
Yeah, I didn't have this on my list, but now that I'm seeing it, I'm like, yeah, that is a good one. I can still sing it right now. It's a rare condition this day and age, reading the good news on the newspaper page. I could sing the whole thing. So it was one of those shows I watched all the time. I love that show, and definitely recognizable. And I think, I don't know how many people would be able to sing it though. Like now, maybe there's more than I think, but like I haven't thought about that show in years, and I can still sing the intro song. So maybe it's
Urkel.
Maybe it's more than I thought. Stacey Metcalf has Happy Days, the Fonz, a jingle that you remember and get stuck in your head. Yeah, agreed.
Yeah,
that was also on my short list.
And Kenya Calderon had Teen Titans, not the Teen Titans Go one. It's the show you always watched while working on homework and pretending to be a superhero as a kid.
Yeah, I never heard of this show, to be honest. So I don't know the intro song, and I don't know the show, but they're looking through the list. Like there's multiple people that had this throughout. So I don't know. I have to check it out. Andrew Cargill has Attack on Titan season 4. So I don't know if that's related to Teen Titans. It sounds like it's different, but it's rock and anime beautiful. That's his right. I'm assuming he's trying to say it's a combination of rock and anime, and it's beautiful. I don't know if he was in a hurry when he wrote out his reasoning, or if I just can't interpret what he's saying. I don't know.
Eric Cordero had Doctor Who. Said it was a timeless classic that when you hear it, you immediately know what TV show is about to play. Groundbreaking use of synthesizers. Wow, I can't talk today. Just go on.
Got it. Will do. Cindy Yeager has Happy Days as well. Rock Around the Clock, and her reasoning is Fonzie.
Swansea. Yeah, Harry Winkler. Who knew?
Yep.
Amy Hutchison had Twilight Zone. Ooh, good one. So iconic, it takes only 3 notes to identify the show. So true. And I love the old Twilight Zone. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's a good one. That I think yeah. And so there's some hidden gems in here, I think, on this list. Bonica Brown has Bay Stars Season 1 Wild Side. It's a jazzy fun song. Beastars. Beastars. I had never heard of it.
I don't know either. Amber Riley had Friends. I'll be there for you. Oh, good one. Because, I'll be there for you. Everyone claps when that part comes up. Don't lie. So true.
Yep, it totally is true. I agree. That's a good one. That's funny though. I never really liked that show. I don't know why. I just never got into it, and I never liked the intro either. That always just annoys me, but it's always stuck in my head. Even now it gets stuck in my head, and I know all the words to it. So if we're talking about TV intro songs, like I guess you got to say that was a good one because I know all the words and I can sing it. And I've never got into the show, never liked it, but it's in my head. So
nice.
I don't know. Michelle Carlasio has the A-Team. It's a good one. What else but this song, knowing something's about to go down? Exactly.
Yeah, right. Amy Pancake had Baywatch. So 80s. It's her reasoning.
Yep. So speaking of Amy Pancake, so she actually told me her number 1 song in passing before I finished my list, and I was going to put it on my list, and it probably wouldn't have been my number 1, but it would have been on there. But I actually left it off there because I felt just like I didn't come up with it organically on my own. I should have, but I didn't.
Better, Josh.
So I left it off. But yeah, Baywatch is definitely a good one.
Yeah.
Wesley Toller had Land of the Lost, 1974 version. Insanely catchy and campy. What else would you want from an epic, zany world building show that had a tiny TV budget?
Yes. That's an awesome one. I wouldn't have thought of that, but that's a great one.
Yeah, so I don't know that I know that one either.
Gosh.
I know so there's a Land of the Lost that was it was, I don't know, 90s or something like that. So he said the 1974 version. So I'm assuming it was obviously
old one. Better. It was really bad cinematography, and it was like a lizard in a cave, like a walking lizard in a cave, and just it was weird.
Yeah,
it was a weird show. So Josh Ward, you want to say yours?
Yeah. So nobody's gonna get mine. Mine is Hunter. It was a cop show in the 80s. And the opening theme starts with the audience like staring down the barrel of a 9mm, and it has rock and roll guitars. Fred Dreyer and Stephanie Kramer were the actors. It was a great cop show. Fred Dreyer actually played in the NFL for a while, and then he started acting. But it's a great cop show. Like, you probably know it. Like, so Stephanie Kramer, she plays a character named McCall, and she drove like this Camaro that was like the coolest car. I mean, it wasn't like super cool car. It was a neat car. And then Hunter drove like this old beat up crappy, like, I don't know, big old boat of a car. And it just, I don't know, it was just funny. Rick Hunter was his name. So Hunter was his last name, but it's a great show. So Laura, what's yours?
Last but not least, mine is Welcome Back, Kotter. Just because, welcome, it's a great song. And it just brings back the whole, I don't know, was that late 70s, early 80s? John Travolta? Boy, I was like 8, I don't know. Yeah, it's good stuff. There's a one I'm thinking of too right now. Grey's Anatomy. Grey's Anatomy had a song by The Fray. And that didn't make my list, and it should have, because that's really good song. Damn it.
Yeah, we could probably put together some like shoulda, woulda, coulda lists.
Yes.
That would be pretty good.
Lots of shoulda, coulda, woulda.
Yeah.
Can't even talk. Okay. All right. So Next week, we'll go into song number 3. You want the new lifter tip. All right.
Ideally.
Building strength and displaying strength you built are 2 different things. Don't underestimate the value of doing movements, accessories, and variations that you're not good at in order to increase your main competition lifts later on. Agree or disagree?
Agree. I think that's one of those things a lot of people overlook is like, as lifters, we always want to lift heavy, squat, bench, and deadlift. Those are the things we're the best at. So as soon as the meet's over, like, what do you see people doing? They're back in the gym doing squat, bench, and deadlift instead of working on the weaknesses that they have. So yeah, I think, obviously you're going to appear weaker when you're working on your weaknesses instead of lifting heavy stuff. So, I just think I would encourage people to not take that for granted and definitely spend some time doing those things, working on those weaknesses, the ranges of motion that are weak, imbalances, any of those things. So
especially the range of motion. We all kind of start to carve out our range of motion and sometimes stop working on it. And, you still need the full range of motion. Everyone as a human is supposed to still have this full range of motion.
Yeah, ideally.
We don't.
We don't.
Because we get after 12. If one stops, people lose range of motion over time.
Yeah, true.
You ever see a baby squat? It's amazing.
I will soon, probably.
I know, right? Yes, you will. And you'll be like, stop, don't lose your mobility.
Yeah, no, that's one thing. Like, I'm going to make sure they don't lose their mobility. That's going to be my thing, man. We're going to be definitely working on that, maintaining it.
Nice.
Yeah, Josh said that he was going to start stretching with the baby too.
Yeah.
I didn't even have the camera on, so I didn't even know you were there until your voice came.
I just got here.
Yeah.
Very nice. Awesome. I love the voice of reason.
Yeah. Well, I think that does it for episode 101. Thank you guys for tuning in. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at PL Ballads Podcast. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, shoot us an email at plballadspodcast@gmail.com. We'll see you guys next week. Later.
I know.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode of the Powerlifting and Power Ballads podcast, please remember to subscribe and share it with your friends.